Everybody loves a parade. We've got deets, all the information you need on today's parade for the national champion Ole Miss Rebels baseball team that's going to happen in Oxford today. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to the show. Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, and thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Today, we are going to talk about a variety of stuff. We're going to talk about the parade in segment 1 and what time and where it's going to go through and all of that stuff. We're going to get to that in just a second. In the second segment, we're going to talk a little bit about Nick Pogue, the transfer commit from the University of Florida that is going to commit it to the baseball team. He's a pitcher. And he's kind of a big dude, so we'll see what he can do. And the last segment, there was an article about on Fansided why Ole Miss is a surprise person to push for a playoff spot, or surprise team, I should say, to push for a playoff spot. And we're going to go over that a little bit in the third segment today. We're starting to get back to normal. Football in every show. We're going to start doing all the stuff we normally do. We have grown so freaking much in the last 14 days. It is absolutely unreal. And I told y'all, before this all started, everything was about to kick up, and it did. And you guys responded like I knew you would. So congratulations, and thank you for watching the show. Anyway, the celebration of champions, I think they're calling it, is happening today. At 5:15, there's the parade route. They're going to go, it looks like, about Handy Andy's. They're going to go through the square. They're going to go to University and over to the Ford Center. That's the parade route. But yeah, that kind of looks about like Handy Andy's, where that might be on the map. It's been a while since I've been and lived in Oxford, but that looks about right. But they're going to hit University and go over to the Ford Center. And then immediately afterwards, they're going to have a celebration at Swayze Field, Oxford University Stadium, in my opinion, soon to be Mike Bianco Stadium. But they're going to have that thing. And everybody loves a parade. Everybody gets a chance to have this cathartic experience and really just let it out. Because it doesn't happen all that much. I mean, this is the first major Big Three national champion by Ole Miss that has happened in my lifetime, period. And that's not a negative towards anybody else or anything else, but it just kind of happened. And the parade route is that, let's just say Handy Andy's to the Ford Center on South Lamar and University Avenue. Go support them. Let them know they're happy. Party one last time to celebrate this national championship, because this is the weird thing. And this is something that Ole Miss fans, because this is a new experience, we're less than 3 weeks until media days at this point. So, yeah, the offseason just goes by in a flash. You got basically 2 weeks you can take a break, and then you're right back at it. And this is absolutely ridiculous, but they're calling this the celebration of champions. By the way, the scriptum looks really good, and it has been prominently advertised all through this baseball run, and I have a feeling it's not going anywhere. But that scriptum, I like the hat, by the way. I do like the hat. The white hat and blue with the scriptum on it, yes, they should absolutely do it. And I do think that moving forward, uniforms should, the Friday night uniform should be navy blue. Powder blue on Sunday, and then alternate red and pin on Saturday. That's my opinion. You might have difference, but the national champion uniform that they wore all through Omaha, and I think they did something similar in 2014. I remember seeing them in the blue tops. Maybe that's their Omaha jerseys. I do not know. But I think Friday night it should start with the blue jersey, go to the red jersey on Saturday, and the powder blue on Sunday. And midweeks, as usual, will be the pins. And that's the way I would handle this. Other people would handle it different ways, but that's what I would do. And yeah, I mean, who knows? Who knows what they're going to do, because this program has excelled. Not excelled like on the spreadsheet, exhaled. 22 years of frustration let out. Like I said, this parade is a cathartic experience. It's the last chance to do this before it all starts over again. So enjoy this. Not many teams get to do this. And when you look at it and you're sitting there thinking about it, think about Evan Button dropping the pop fly against Virginia. Think about Arizona State just ripping us apart in a super. Think about Miami and Jamil Weeks turning into Barry Bonds for a weekend and taking us down in Oxford. Picture that Texas team in 2005 and our first trip to the Super Regional. Picture all of that frustration that is built up, and whenever everybody wanted to talk about what was going on, the 1-for-8 Super Regional advancement opportunities. Picture that. Enjoy this. All of that died a couple of days ago. I don't care what anybody says. We Are Ole Miss died a couple weeks ago. Now, you want to talk about weird things happening in your teams? Weird things happen to every team. A ball bounced off a helmet against Alabama, and Quincy Attaboyjoy scored a touchdown. That would have been a We Are Ole Miss moment if it was Ole Miss. Alabama, we are Alabama. The wind blew back a field goal against Mississippi State. That would be a We Are Mississippi State moment. Weird things happen to all schools. You are not picked on, and just because it happens doesn't make it something that honestly you should overly concern yourself with. It's not a round ball. The ball bounces weird. And because of that, we got it. Now, I will say this, and hopefully, I think this is going to be a turning point for the fan base. And this is not a criticism to the fan base. But the frustration that built up on that 1-for-8 carried over into the fan base. So in a super regional or in a regional playing at home, whenever it got close, whenever momentum started to shift, it got real quiet, like Twilight Zone, eerily quiet. And that was because they were expecting bad things to happen. And that's not an insult or anything. That's just the truth. Now, maybe after this run, those same fans will have a different reaction to that environment. Maybe it's just ingrained. Maybe it's just the way they were brought up. I do not know. I do not know how they will react after this. You know that saying, act like you've been there before? Well, now we have. So, understand this. And also, you don't have to have a Tennessee-like regular season to win a national championship. We just proved that. We just absolutely proved that. So, I think everybody learned the lesson to wait to the end to make the rash judgment, to have the take, instead of trying to get ahead and try to start a narrative. Because people might be upset, whatever it might be. But there's a lot of stuff that potentially could change because of this win. And I don't even think people realize how that'll be. It could be in the 7th inning in a 2-run game, and all of a sudden the crowd, they're behaving like normal, even though the other team is trying to put together a rally, because they have confidence that we can get through this. It might be a baseball team that's that might freak out before, that doesn't necessarily freak out, and they make the play they're supposed to make, and all of a sudden they kill the rally, just like the College World Series, just handling that in the regular season. It's going to be really interesting to see the end result of this run and how it affects the psyche of the Ole Miss fan base. Because for 15 years at this point, they've expected to win a national championship. Nobody outside of Ole Miss thought it was really much of a thing. It's like they're a good team, but, I haven't seen anything yet to show that they can do it. Well, now they've done it. They've actually done it. And that's going to affect outside perspective. That's going to affect the fan base. That's going to affect the baseball players that are on the team coming back, like Kemp Alderman and Jacob Gonzalez and those guys. Calvin Harris, guys that played major roles in this College World Series. It's going to help them next year. The new kids that are coming in the signing class, like Will Furness and those guys, it's going to affect them as well. I can't imagine how excited they are right now. They signed, they probably committed 4 years ago. They signed a year ago to a team that, all the 1-for-8 stuff was in the air. And they're going to show up in a couple of weeks to the national champion. That's a really cool thing, and I'm really happy for these kids that ended up picking Ole Miss. Now, Mike Bianco's always recruited well, absolutely recruited well, but we'll see exactly how this happens. This dude is Ole Miss baseball. Understand this. I've said this probably 5 or 6 times. Ole Miss baseball didn't really exist without him. They were a middling team before he arrived. And he turned that middling team, where Mississippi State was by far the power in baseball in this state. And in 20 years, he is caught up to the point where both have one national championship. Now, others have other appearances, but I'm not necessarily worried about that. We'll see how that looks, but yeah. Parade today, 5:15. It looks like it's going to go down Lamar to University, finish up at the Ford Center, and then they're going to have a celebration in the baseball field, the whole thing. So if you want to go, you want to tune in, you want to do whatever, I'm sure Twitter is going to be really alight over all of that. It's going to be pretty cool. Anyway, this episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you'll need while endure the often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning, is your Odyssey an LX or an EX? And wait for the person behind the counter to order the parts on their computer, choosing only the brand their warehouse happens to carry. You have computers with access to Rock Auto at home and in your pocket. So save time with Rock Auto. They're a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer. So go explore their easy-to-use website today and find the solution to your auto parts needs. Anyway, go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your cars and trucks. Write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us section so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliable low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. All right, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including iTunes. So do us a favor. Leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. You can say whatever you want to say. Talk about all the things that I'm doing wrong and how I annoy you. But please leave a 5-star review. It will help us out when people are searching for the podcast on the audio side. The podcast right now has grown by over 50% in the last 13 days. This is an unbelievable month for us. Absolutely fantastic. And that is all you guys. So thank you very much for everything you do. Anyway, I want to talk to you about Nick Pogue. Who is Nick Pogue? Nick Pogue is a baseball player from the University of Florida that is transferring to Ole Miss. He's a pitcher. He's a power pitcher, a big guy. He's a redshirt junior, or he will be a redshirt junior, which means he'll be draft eligible for 1 year. I'm sure he's hoping he'll come here and get some of that pitching special sauce that he saw over and over the last couple of weeks, and really perform and get drafted and go to the next level. That is probably his thing. Now, He spent his sophomore year, or 2022, he pitched this year. He was 4-3, had a 4.59 ERA, and opponents hit .230 against him. Struck out 37 batters in 39 frames. He walked 12, so he has good control. He made a 733 day recovery from Tommy John surgery against Seton Hall on March 13th, allowing 1 run in an inning and a 2/3. He pitched 3 perfect innings and with 3 strikeouts to earn a victory against Florida A&M on April 5th. He earned the win at Mississippi State on March 8th by throwing 5 innings of 1-run ball, scattering 6 hits and run one walk while striking out 4. He recorded a quality start at Missouri on May 15th, pitching a career-high 6 2/3 innings with 3 earned runs and a career-high 8 strikeouts. And he allowed 2 runs across 5 innings with 4 hits allowed and 2 walks and 8 strikeouts to earn a win over number 13 Arkansas in the SEC tournament. Good player. Coming back from Tommy John, that takes a little bit of time. That's kind of the equivalent in baseball to the ACL injury. Not the ACL in baseball is not really the same thing. I'm talking about an ACL in football, but Tommy John kind of fits that same thing. As you get more time from the surgery, you're going to get better and better and better as the recovery happens. And you have a power pitcher, and understand that you have a power pitcher, and he fills up the zone. And, John Gaddis and Jack Washburn were instrumental to this national championship run. It doesn't happen without those two. This is one of those types transfers. You might have a situation with Hunter Elliott and Jack Doherty, maybe even a Mason Nichols, and this guy competing for the starting rotation. And I think it'll work. He seems like he might be the type pitcher that you normally see from Ole Miss. But we'll see what it looks like. Now, I think he has a chance to be good. He has a chance to be a weekend starter, but he also has a chance to be that midweek guy or that Jack Washburn type guy or the John Gaddis utility guy out of the pen. He has a chance to do that as well because you're going to have to move some arms into the starting rotation regardless because you're losing Derek Diamond and you're probably losing Dylan DeLucia. So it's basically Hunter Elliott, and we need to figure it out. Now, Jack Doherty had a great start in the College World Series, so he's probably going to get that opportunity to be somebody that can go deep in a game. Because the important part of this team, and nobody is really talking about it, the important part of this College World Series run was the fact that we didn't even have to think about using our bullpen until the 7th or 8th inning. They were so unused. At that point, we had supermen out in our bullpen. They were all rested up. Brandon Johnson pitched twice. And, he might have closed out the final game, and he was at the bottom of that dog pile, but he pitched twice, I think. So, understand that supercharges your bullpen, but some of those guys that were in the bullpen that were so instrumental to this run, they're going to move forward into the starting rotation. It's going to happen. Now, Dylan DeLucia could come back. He's a redshirt sophomore, I think. So he's a draft-eligible sophomore, but even if he comes back for one more year, he has leverage for the next draft. So it won't really hurt him. But I think he's at the age to where he'll probably go. I don't know about TJ McCants. I'm proud for him in the College World Series. He's a guy that could go as well. He's a draft-eligible sophomore. Jacob Gonzalez is not. So we'll see what this team kind of looks like next year. And it's probably going to be a little bit of a rebuild. I think Calvin Harris is going to go behind the plate again. And we'll see what it looks like. We just don't know what draft eligible players and how that is going to shake out. But Nick Pogue is a transfer from the University of Florida. He's going to fill part of that need with the pitching staff to get an experienced guy in that's thrown SEC innings coming in to battle these guys. He's been in the wars. He knows what it's like. So we'll see exactly how that looks for him. I'm pretty excited about it. Being here in the basement below the palatial Central Florida studios, I do have a little bit of respect for Gainesville because it's right down the road. So, they're trying to build because they have all the talent. The state has 45 million people. To put that in perspective, Mississippi has 3. I mean, you're dealing with a place that's unreal larger. It's like 15 times the size of the state of Mississippi. So there's players down here. So the University of Florida, Florida State University, University of Miami, Central Florida, USF, they all have a hotbed to recruit from, especially when it comes to baseball. Because if you look at our roster, there's a lot of kids from Florida on it, including probably most of the teams in the country. But Florida State and Miami, Florida, they always have good baseball teams, good players. So whenever I see a player transferring from Florida that went into that program, I'm immediately going to put them up on a little bit of a pedestal. Now, does that mean he is going to succeed and do all the things we want him to do? I do not know. I genuinely do not know. But he's not going to freak out whenever Tennessee is a hitter from Tennessee is lining up in the batter's box. He's seen all that. He's been there. He's done that. So I think it was a good pickup. It genuinely was. And I think Ole Miss can do pretty well. I'm really interested to see what the starting rotation will look like next year. I think there's a chance you could have even Jack Doherty on Friday night and keeping Hunter Elliott on Saturday, because that Mike likes to keep the right-hander, left-hander, right-hander so it doesn't go back-to-back. So there's a chance you could see Hunter Elliott again on Saturday. He even tried that some with Doug McCasey. So we'll see what that looks like into the next year. But as the transfer portal turns, I think Ole Miss is about. We're going to see something. Now LSU, by the way, before we get on, LSU has signed the shortstop from Vanderbilt, Tommy Tanks from NC State, and Christian Little, the Vanderbilt pitcher that I think was so good. So look for LSU to become a dude. They're obviously spending NIL money on baseball, and remember all the advantages that Vanderbilt had. Now with the advent of NIL, it might not have as much of an advantage. You might see Vanderbilt kind of come back to the pack a little bit. Anyway, let's hear from betonline.net. Betonline.net is your number one source for all of your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's NHL playoffs and in Major League Baseball scores. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. And BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. It's the fastest and easiest way to check on all your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. As you can see there, Ole Miss is a 21.5-point favorite over Troy in Week 1. We're going to talk about football in a minute. Anyway, Bet Online, where the game starts. All right. Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So this is what we're trying to do. Now, it took 5 months to get 1,000 subscriptions. It took 5 months. Now we're asking you to get the next 1,002. So this is how we're going to do this. Subscribe to the website, the YouTube channel. If you have already, tell a friend. Get them to subscribe. If you haven't, subscribe. And we will try and build this up. And if we hit 2,000 subscriptions, we will be doing a pregame show as well as a postgame show. Because you get a postgame show because we hit 1,000. But if we hit 2,000, a pregame show is in your future for football only, by the way, for the pregame show. So, it's pretty interesting. So today on Fansided, Ole Miss football, 3 reasons the Rebels will make a surprise playoff push in 2022. 3 reasons. Okay, so Matt Corral and Sam Williams is gone. A couple of receivers have gone. A lot of players that made this team tick left. I mean, I think we can all admit that. Some people that made this team tick, that went to the Sugar Bowl, the Mississippi Made class, even John Rice Plumlee, went to UCF. And everybody just, if you're a flyover on this team with all those players that left, you'd be like, well, Ole Miss is going to take a step back. That's only natural. And that is the way the flyover media will see it. But this team requires additional investigation. If you look into it a little bit, you'll see that Jerry and Ely, who was a star on the Ole Miss football team, and Snoop Connor, who was a star on the Ole Miss football team, have been replaced by Zach Evans and Ulysses. I can't remember his last name. I can't remember his last name at all. That's crazy. His first name's Ulysses. Every now and then, after my brain surgery, last names and first names, it just all disappears. So let's look that up real quick. So, sorry about this. But those players coming in made this team just as explosive as they were. Just as explosive as they were before. Maybe even more so. But where is he? What number is he? Okay, Ulysses Bentley the fourth. I almost called him Bennett. That's where I was doing. It's like, that's not right. It's Ulysses Bentley the fourth. And those are the guys coming in replacing Snoop Connor and Jerry and Ely. And this is going to be weird to say, but this room this year is an abject upgrade over last year's room. Matt Corral was an unbelievable quarterback and steward at Ole Miss football. Absolutely. There's no arguing that. But you're replacing him with a Gatorade National Player of the Year potentially. Or a 4-star. There's a battle to happen. We're going to cover the quarterback battle and get right back into it in the next week or two. So get ready to get in the weeds there, because we're going to have some fun. We're going to bring some high school coaches on and stuff like that and talk about this competition. So they had 3 reasons to believe that. And the first one is confidence from a hot start. And what they mean by that is the first 6 games. If you look at Ole Miss's schedule, it's Troy, Central Arkansas, it's Tulsa, it's Georgia Tech. You got a game against Kentucky that's actually a big one, and then you have Vanderbilt. The first 6 games, 6-0 start is probably needs to be expected, honestly. 5-1 is possible, but 6-0 you can do this. And then after that, you have Auburn and LSU, 2 teams that you should be able to beat as well. So there's a potential for an 8-0 start in this thing. And then the heavy hitters hit. Texas A&M, Alabama, Arkansas, Mississippi State. So you get in there, and for some reason, if Ole Miss is 8-0, and you get Texas A&M, a team that you beat last year, and you can win that game, it kind of becomes a 1-game season after that, if you're talking playoff. So I can see exactly why they were able to get to where they were. Because there is a chance for momentum to really build, and the same thing that made the 2018 basically so unbeatable is still there. All right, the second one is the defense continues rapid improvement. Yes, they're getting good. They're about 9 deep on the defensive line. They're getting transfers in at linebacker. They've got a bunch of box safeties and safeties to rotate. Yes. This defense is getting really good and really hard to deal with. And the number 1 reason is key transfer additions. And this is where they're going to talk about the Zach Evans, the Ulysses Bentley, the fourth, the Jackson Dart, the Michael Trigg, the Jordan Watkins, Malik Heath, Jalen Robinson, Jacoby Moore, Mason Brooks, J.J. Pegues, Ladarius Tennyson, Troy Brown, Jared Ivey, Ishim Young. They're going to talk about all those guys, and they're going to have to deal with it. And this is why this Ole Miss team needs more inspection before you just fly over and make a thing. Because if you look at Letterman's loss, and this is a major thing. Remember, anytime somebody is in national media, there's information from 130 teams that they're required to keep up with. So a lot of their teams, if it's not in that 10-team pay attention to group, is starters lost. Okay, they lost Matt Corral. They lost Jerry Neely. They lost all those. So this is what they're going to do, and it's all preset. And it's not real because they haven't actually investigated further. Now, in the next couple of days, I'm supposed to get my Phil Steele magazine, and we will start looking at the Phil Steele stuff and breaking down the Ole Miss team as well and the SEC as a whole. Remember, tonight also, go over to the Y'all's Conference Network YouTube page, hit up SEC After Dark, and we will all be talking about that. And, of course, I will be gloating about the Ole Miss College World Series win. So, anyway, that is the reason that Ole Miss could surprise in the playoff. Anyway, get more SEC by making the Locked On SEC your second listen every day. Host Chris Gordy and his local experts, like me, of Locked On take you across the SEC in 30 minutes. Make Locked On your second listen. Man, this has been a great show. Remember, parade, enjoy it today. Take a time to do this. Make this be a cathartic experience. You've earned it. If you have ever watched a midweek game on ESPN Plus or sat through against whoever Ole Miss was playing to where it meant that much to you, today needs to be a cathartic experience. Congratulations to everybody. And I want you to know it's going to get back to normal now. And thank you very much for tuning into the show. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace.